It always comes to this. More nice shit. Morning guys, back again to another tattoo progress update today. Where I last left off, I showed off the back stretch here, this tentacle that was redone. There's most of it is peeled now and healed up really good, really easy. Obviously no problems with that. I figured I'd be showing you this a little bit later actually, because my tattoo appointment I did have scheduled with Terry, I ended up giving to a client. He had a whole bunch of shuffling with his books. You know, it's December, as I covered in the last vlog that I did. It's been a pretty slow year in general for tattoos, but this year has been, you know, it's been the worst December I've ever seen, and December has always been a bad month for this industry. So Terry had some more fuck around, and I ended up snagging another spot anyway, and I kind of didn't mind giving away my appointment this week, and people will immediately call bullshit on that. But I've been dodging or putting off doing my full back rework. I didn't really enjoy the sessions that we had on it, but I didn't do 8 weeks back to back on it, but I think I did 8 sessions in 11 weeks or something crazy like that on my back over the blackout. And as we got to the final session, when we mostly complete the back piece, it was like, even in the vlog where I addressed it and showed it off, it was like, this is not the end of this. We'll be back to this. And even though it looked pretty good in the videos and pictures that we took fresh, and looked pretty good in the vlog that I showed it off, and it even held up decently well, it just wasn't like, it wasn't fully done yet, and I knew that a lot of the colors could be better, namely the blue background, which we didn't even address this time. I wasn't sure how much work we had in the back piece, and I said that when I was talking about here last week. I didn't know what Terry wanted to do with it. First, it's his piece as much as mine, maybe more, and so I just kind of gave him full reins to rework and revamp whatever he wanted to. I think chief for him was he wanted to get some more depth and dimension into things, and he asked me at the beginning, he's like, okay, well, what do you want to redo on it? Just the color, white, what? I was like, dude, just do whatever. Like, do whatever you think needs to be done. Like, that's the best way to do this. I think sometimes, like, even the black in these compositions, even though the black is kind of, once it's there, it can't get a lot darker. Sometimes when you have the color in there already, like, so originally when you put these pieces together, I'll just break this down again. You want to do everything in black on black lines and dark shading for the dark areas. You can't leave the negative of the blackout as your darkest point. You have to go in and fill black in there. I've said this a lot on here, but for people just joining me now or recently, all of the black in my tattoos is freshly done. Like, that's not old blackout here. It should be obvious, but it's not. A lot of people don't understand this, even to try and break it down to them. Like that, the black lines in here, that's not negative space from the blackout. That's fresh black in there. And the only way you can achieve these kinds of results is if you do that. You can't leave that open space, or the white will kind of just, it will just travel. It won't be locked. It won't appear as contrasted or contained. You do need to do those lines again, and even this dark shading in here has stayed the same. You couldn't utilize the old blackout as that layer. It doesn't work that way. You have to resaturate the whole thing, and the result of that is something like a full color black and gray tattoo in white and black on black. People mention white all the time. There's way too much talk about white ink in tattooing over black. And I think it would be helpful for people to think of these things more as black on black than white on black. The white on black is typically done to highlight the black on black. And if it's not done that way, then it doesn't appear the same way. And isn't as contrasted or as striking or visible for any amount of time, let alone long term. But anyway, where I was going with all of this, and I'll show my back off before getting carried away here. So hopefully that's, I don't know if I went back far enough or not, but sometimes when you have the color in after the black has been done, and then you come back in, and if you're willing to do this much work, if you black up to the color again, the black is more visible as well because it's contrasted and kind of bordered by the color that you've done. So in this, everything is layers, right? And I know this very well by now. There's some effects that cannot be achieved in a single session. I had some blowhard come into, I don't even know why I'm mentioning this, but it should intuit that people who don't know that much about this probably don't understand these things and why they're done. But I had a guy ask me why it's taking so many sessions for some of this stuff, because he thinks his artist could do it in a few. Your artist could not do anything like this in a few, and for that matter, no artist could. And if that's what you want, I don't really recommend doing cover-up projects at all. I would be open to as many as it takes. And when you're working on a full bodysuit like I am, that's done over blackout, if you think your artist is doing that in a few sessions, your artist is fucking Houdini or something. He's fucking Merlin if he can do that. I don't think he can do that. No offense to your guy. I'm sure he's fine. But no, he's not doing that. And no artist is. And to put that kind of expectation on someone is insane. It's fucking preposterous. Let me, I pulled something out here to show you guys. I don't do this very often, but this is a picture of Art the Clown, the Terrifier. I think it's from Terrifier Part 3. I haven't seen the movie. Terry's been very, very excited to do this. He's doing it in full color. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because he did, and I'll put the pictures in here. He did 4.5 hours on this piece on a guy's thigh recently. He did the mouth and the glasses, a little bit of the nose. The nose is not finished, and even in the mouth and the glasses, he will need to touch that up again. You know why it took so long? Because he did full color realism. If he had done black and gray on this is going to be really relevant here in a minute. If he had done black and gray, he could have done the whole thing in about the same amount of time. And someone who doesn't know anything about tattoos would probably even think, or maybe even think, that's the cooler tattoo anyway, or the better tattoo. People talk about better a lot in tattoos. Like, I just recently have just started putting up the final finished version of my back piece from back in summer, from session 8. And I did a video on my Instagram of my back being blacked out, the clip of that, and then all of the sessions leading up to where I left it off in summer. And you wouldn't believe the amount of people who come in and go, I like the original piece better, or you're crazy to black out that amazing piece. And it's like, there were some real problems in that back piece. Now, I, first off, really liked my old back piece, and I love the guy who did it. But even Lee wanted to black that out, and the face on the girl in the middle was wonky as fuck. He was never really fully happy with how that piece came together because he was working around Rick's piece, his the sword and the roses and the skulls in the middle of that thing. So it was never really a one concept back piece. We just kind of made it work. And there were a lot of issues with that. Whereas the new piece is one piece, one concept, big, bold, and striking. That's what I wanted my back piece to be. And if by the point I got to the black and gray back piece, I had nothing there from Rick 10 years prior, that piece would have looked a lot different too. So it was by no means better, technically speaking. I understand that people prefer black and gray tattoos, But black and gray tattoos on a technical level are pathetically easy compared to color of any kind, let alone full-scale color realism stuff. Like, for the amount of hate that this chest piece has got, for example, the pussy monster, that weird octopus thing on your chest, is that Cthulhu? All of these stupid comments. This thing has so much work in it. So much that the layman will never appreciate or understand or care. They'll just look at it and they'll sum up whether they like it or not right away. And I understand that. I get it. Not everybody needs to know how the sausage is made. But it has over 100 colors in it. Whereas the black and gray version of it would have a few black washes, and that would be it. And it would take a fraction of the time, and it would take a fraction of the cost. Now, the reason why I showed you guys Art the Clown over there is because that tattoo cost $945 that day. Terry took a little bit of time off. Terry's hourly is currently $220 an hour. And he's very quick, and I think he earns his rate. He's even a little low for, I think, what he could get in a bigger city at this point in his career here. With that said, that piece will need at least 3 sessions for that one tattoo, and then it will likely need a touch-up round. And that's probably going to be a $3,500 tattoo. Now, the black and gray version of it would likely cost, as I said, probably around $800 to $1,000. That's the kind of the going rate for a big portrait like that typically. If you want it done well. If you want it done poorly, or you don't give a fuck about quality, you can find a guy down the road who's going to give it to you for a couple $100. But understand that quality does matter. Just because it looks like the guy doesn't mean that all mistakes and errors of technical capabilities are forgiven, right? And just because you like something doesn't mean that it's technically better. It's part of why the Remy React show is so hard to do, because I'm grading things in a way in my mind a lot of the times, unless the tattoos are really bad, and then you just kind of give them a pass. I'm looking at things from a completely different stance than most people are, and I understand this. It's hard to even make it make sense to most people, because some things, some styles of tattoos, for example, take way more time and way more effort to get certain effects. Like there were 42 colors used in those glasses and that mouth. And you could use less colors, but then you'd be doing more mixing. So there really is no fast road to that stuff. You just have to be patient. I've seen people try and do things like that where they don't use that many colors, and what happens is they end up looking animated. They don't look like the thing. And that's fine if you're doing an animated tattoo. For example, this was never going to be a realistic tattoo. Even if you did a color realism kind of approach to it, or a mindset towards it, it's not something that exists. But in order to get certain like tricks, like light sources and different gradients and colors and stuff like this, to make it look like what a pair of lips would actually look like in that light, or the shine of those glasses and different things like that. With black and gray, that's all just play with negative space, and you could do that in no fucking time. But in color, every part of that has to be saturated, and every little fucking millimeter of it is oftentimes a different color. And if you don't pay it that respect, it doesn't end up looking correct. Now, how does all this apply to my back piece, you might ask? Well, the idea is that it can't be done, none of my work can be done in a rush. None of it can be done quickly, and none of it can be done overnight, one session, any of this stuff. It's partly that I've learned, too, that even if you just run at these things, especially like since it's color over black, that clown, if I was to do that Art the Clown piece as a back piece, with as long as that took as is going to take as a thigh piece, 3 sessions minimum with a touch-up session. If I were to do that on my back and blow it up to a larger scale, let's say it's not even over black, all of a sudden you're in probably 20, 30 sessions to do something like that, because everything gets larger and the details all get larger, and you're going to have all this shit in there and Well, maybe not 20 to 30 sessions, but it's going to be a lot of sessions. Now, let's say I try to do Art the Clown on my back like Terry's done on this guy's thigh. Every single one of those sessions is going to be 3 to 4 sessions, 3 to 4 passes to get the saturation that I want. And then all of a sudden it's at least 15 sessions roughly to do that, right? At least. That's to get it to the place where we left my back piece at last year. Or not last year, in summer. And so the reason why I'm mentioning this is because we wanted my back piece to be bold and not super, super detailed, because I first off wanted it to be readable. Also wanted it to be achievable, right? And I also knew that I did not want to do, 30 sessions on my back. We did 8, and we got it to a place where it looked good, which is, by the way, pretty fucking quick. Now, we have 2 more coming up, but what I'm doing is not a color realistic Art the Clown on my back, because I don't really think that that's as feasible over black. You might be able to get some of that detail to work, but we've even found with, bigger details than what are in that Art the Clown piece, some of them don't work very well, right? Or they're harder to get. Like, we're getting them now, but then you look at my hand and there's still so much work to do. So some of what the layout for my back was informed by was some of the troubles that I've had in other areas of my bodysuit. And I'm always going to be honest with you guys. Some things over blackout aren't the best. Like, they just don't work as easy. And it doesn't mean they're never going to be achievable. It just means that, like, don't plan for failure, right? Some of those little tricks that he does in the teeth and things like this, they'd be very hard to do over blackout. Now, I don't even want that tattoo. I'm just making a comparison as to why we went fairly bold and simple and clean with the back piece. It's the same reason why the rose sleeve ends up working out so good, is because it's not bogged down in all these little details that would be hard to achieve over black. It's just big, bold, and striking, right? No. I would never regret doing any of this the way we have, but it's been very informative, right? And as I said, we've gotten pretty far with it, and the little details are starting to work, but it's been a long time, and I didn't really want to do that fucking kind of a journey on my back. Also, I don't think it would make much difference or make the Krampus back piece any better to the people who don't like it if it was more detailed either. I don't think so. I think that the people who don't like it, number one, don't know the subject matter, don't give a fuck, but also just don't like color tattoos. And I've had that vehemently expressed to me since my bodysuit has gone back to more full color, is most people liked it when it was blackout with white and black. And I started losing some of the flaky kind of half-in people with tattoos when color came back into the equation. And working on the inside of the shop, you wouldn't believe how many times someone will mention color here, wanting to do color, and the client is just not into it. Like, color tattoos are just not as popular as black and gray. And I think it's weird as fuck, but maybe I've just spent too much time around this, because, like, I appreciate the fuck out of color, and I understand that, yes, it is more expensive, but I think it makes a more interesting tattoo. Maybe I nerd out too much on the details and the technical of it. I also think that it looks aesthetically better, though, too. So, but obviously I'm in the minority. I think, theoretically, if I showed my back piece to these same experts with their opinions that it's not as good as my first back piece, if it was in black and gray, they might change their tune. And I find that hilarious, because doing the black and gray version of it is, as I mentioned, much quicker and much easier, and technically much less impressive. But not everybody knows these things, and I understand. It's like, I probably don't know the fine details that go into making a nice cowboy hat. Actually, I kind of do. I know a guy who makes hats, and there's a lot of work that goes into that stuff. But most people don't appreciate that, and we don't have patience for that, and we just want the fucking cheeseburger from McDonald's, and, don't ask too many questions. I'm trying not to think very hard. That's kind of the culture we're in right now. I really think, and I'm not going to get into this too much today, but there's been the last few years, there's been a marked change in people's attention span and ability to do basic things like read or pay attention for more than 10 seconds. And it's starting to feel a little bit like we're living in an idiocracy. And you should try and train your mind against that as much as you can. Right? Try and put deep focus into things and learn as much as you can so you don't end up being a part of that is what I would recommend, because it's so easy these days with everything being, at the click of a finger, or, you don't really have to know anything anymore because you can just Google it on your phone immediately and now you're the expert. And so memory is going away and all of these things are suffering. And I feel like if you don't actively go, like, when was the last time you read a book? I read all the time. I'm reading a book right now. I'm reading a big book of Christmas horror stories, right? My wife got it from me for Christmas last year. And most people, if you put a gun to their head, probably couldn't read that book. It's very dense. It's very old school. There's a lot of words in there. It's around 450 pages of small print. And some of it is boring and some of it is cool. But I find those things really interesting. And I think we should try and do a little bit more with our brains in order to keep good mental health. Anyway, I'll be talking to you guys here in a couple days when I have another session with Rick. I think we're going to be working on top again, actually. Not going to get into what we're going to be doing, but Rick's got some ideas. So I'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day.